The morning sun filtered through the grand windows of Clarence House as Camilla Parker Bowles, now officially known simply as Queen Camilla, reviewed her schedule for the day. The transformation from a woman once vilified by the British press to a respected queen consort had been remarkable, spanning decades of careful public service and gradual acceptance by both the royal family and the British people. Born Camilla Rosemary Shand on July 17, 1947, at King's College Hospital, London, she had grown up as the daughter of Major Bruce Middleton Hope Shand and the Honourable Rosalind Maud Shand. Her early life in East Sussex, where the family moved in 1951, was marked by privilege but also by tragedy that would later shape her charitable work. Her mother's death from osteoporosis in 1994, followed by her grandmother's death from the same disease 8 years earlier, would eventually lead Camilla to become the president of the Royal Osteoporosis Society in 2001. The early 1970s brought a fateful meeting with Prince Charles that would forever alter the trajectory of her life. Their relationship, which began as a romance before Charles left for naval duties, evolved into a friendship during her marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles, and eventually rekindled into a love affair that would captivate and scandalize the British public for decades. The revelation of their relationship in the 1990s, particularly during Charles's tumultuous marriage to Princess Diana, cast Camilla as one of the most controversial figures in modern royal history. The death of Princess Diana in 1997 marked a turning point that could have ended Camilla's association with the royal family forever. Public sentiment was firmly against her, with many viewing her as the woman who had destroyed the fairy tale marriage of Charles and Diana. The British press, which had once been somewhat sympathetic to her plight as a woman caught between love and duty, turned hostile. Opinion polls showed that the vast majority of the British public opposed any marriage between Charles and Camilla, and many actively campaigned against the possibility of her ever becoming queen. However, Charles remained steadfast in his commitment to Camilla, and gradually, a careful campaign of public rehabilitation began. Camilla started attending royal events, initially staying in the background but slowly taking on more visible roles. Her natural warmth and humor began to shine through in public appearances, and her genuine commitment to charitable causes started to change public perception. The announcement of their engagement on February 10, 2005, was a carefully orchestrated affair. Clarence House publicized the engagement with great care, emphasizing Camilla's charitable work and her support for Charles. The engagement ring itself told a story of royal history and acceptance, a diamond ring that had belonged to Charles's grandmother, given to her when she gave birth to Charles's mother. The ring, featuring a square-cut diamond with 3 diamond baguettes on each side, symbolized not just their personal commitment, but also the royal family's acceptance of Camilla. Their wedding on April 9, 2005, at Windsor Guildhall, was a civil ceremony followed by a blessing at St. George's Chapel. The event was deliberately understated compared to Charles's first wedding, reflecting both the couple's maturity and the sensitivity surrounding their union. Camilla's choice to become the Duchess of Cornwall rather than Princess of Wales was seen as a respectful nod to Diana's memory and a sign of her awareness of public sentiment. As the Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla began to establish herself as a working royal in her own right. She took on numerous patronages, focusing particularly on issues close to her heart: literacy, animal welfare, and support for survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence. Her work with the National Osteoporosis Society continued to be deeply personal, driven by her family's experience with the disease. The years that followed saw a gradual but steady improvement in public perception. Camilla's self-deprecating humor, her obvious devotion to Charles, and her hard-working approach to royal duties began to win over skeptics. Royal commentators noted how much happier Charles seemed with Camilla by his side, describing him as more relaxed and confident in his public role. By 2022, when Queen Elizabeth II made her surprise announcement during her Platinum Jubilee year that it was her sincere wish that Camilla would be known as Queen Consort when Charles became king, the transformation was largely complete. The announcement, which many saw as the late Queen's final gift to her son and daughter-in-law, was met with general acceptance rather than the outrage that might have greeted such news decades earlier. The death of Queen Elizabeth II on September 8, 2022, marked the beginning of a new chapter. Charles became King Charles III, and Camilla automatically became Queen Consort. However, even this title was destined to evolve. In a move that surprised many royal observers, King Charles III issued a royal warrant before their coronation on May 6, 2023, officially changing his wife's title in all royal documentation to simply Queen Camilla. This decision removed the consort distinction and reflected her full status and equal standing alongside the king. The coronation ceremony itself was a powerful symbol of acceptance and transformation. Camilla, wearing Queen Mary's crown, was crowned alongside Charles in a ceremony watched by millions around the world. The moment represented the culmination of a journey that had taken her from public enemy to Queen of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth realms. In 2023, The Independent named Camilla the most influential woman of 2023 in its influence list, and her name appeared on the list again in 2024 and 2025. This recognition reflected not just her royal status, but her genuine impact on the causes she championed and her role in modernizing the monarchy. The early years of her reign as queen have been marked by both challenges and opportunities. King Charles's cancer diagnosis in 2024 thrust Camilla into a more prominent role, as she deputized for him at major events including the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey and the Royal Maundy at Worcester Cathedral, where she became the first consort to hand out the ceremonial coins. Her international debut as queen included significant tours to Australia and Samoa with Charles, though these were not without challenges. A chest infection that later proved to be pneumonia forced her to cancel several engagements, including initially a planned Vatican visit. However, the surprise visit to meet Pope Francis at Casa Santa Marta on April 9, 2025, their 20th wedding anniversary, became a poignant moment when they met the Pope during his own recovery from illness, just 12 days before his death. The expansion of her charitable work has continued to be a defining feature of her role as queen. In May 2024, after a major review of royal patronages and charity presidencies, Camilla took on 15 new patronages, including the Army Benevolent Fund, Royal Academy of Dance, Royal Voluntary Service, Royal Literary Fund, Royal Foundation of St. Catherine, and Queen's Nursing Institute. Her commitment to literacy led to the creation of the Queen's Reading Room, an online book club that has grown to distribute 3,000 books annually to people in need. Perhaps most significantly, her advocacy for survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence has become a cornerstone of her public work. Since 2009, she has worked tirelessly to support survivors, expanding her efforts to become involved with Safe Lives in 2016. The Wash Bag Project, which she initiated in 2013 as the Duchess of Cornwall, provides essential toiletries to survivors of sexual assault receiving forensic examinations at sexual assault referral centers across the UK. In 2024, she participated in a documentary to raise awareness of domestic violence, declaring her lifetime commitment to the cause with the words, "We have made a huge amount of progress, and I shall keep on trying until I am able to know more." The modernization of royal protocols under her influence has been subtle but significant. Her decision not to retain the traditional system of ladies-in-waiting, instead appointing 6 close friends as Queen's companions, reflects a more contemporary approach to royal household management. This change, announced in November 2022, eliminated the need for the traditional role of Mistress of the Robes, marking the quiet end of a position that had existed for centuries. As Queen Camilla settled into her role, the transformation from controversial figure to respected monarch seemed complete. However, the most significant challenges and opportunities lay ahead as the royal family navigated questions about succession, modernization, and the monarchy's role in contemporary Britain and the Commonwealth. The official statements and announcements of 2025 would reveal just how much her role was set to evolve in the coming years, as she prepared to help shape the future of the British monarchy alongside King Charles III. The crisp autumn air of 2024 carried with it an unexpected challenge that would test Queen Camilla's resolve and reshape her understanding of royal duty. King Charles III's cancer diagnosis had sent shockwaves through the monarchy, but for Camilla, it represented an opportunity to step forward in ways she had never imagined when she first married into the royal family nearly 2 decades earlier. Standing in the magnificent nave of Westminster Abbey for the Commonwealth Day service, Camilla felt the weight of history and responsibility on her shoulders. She was not just representing herself, or even just the king. She was representing the continuity of the monarchy itself. As she moved through the familiar rituals of the service, distributing ceremonial coins at the Royal Maundy at Worcester Cathedral, she made history as the first consort to perform this ancient duty. The symbolism was not lost on royal observers. Camilla was no longer simply supporting the monarchy, she was actively carrying it forward. The royal calendar of 2024 and 2025 had been carefully planned, but illness and recovery meant constant adjustments. Each cancelled engagement by the king meant another opportunity for Camilla to step into the breach. Her approach was characteristically pragmatic. She simply got on with the job that needed doing, bringing her own style and warmth to occasions that might otherwise have felt diminished by the king's absence. The international stage beckoned in ways that would have seemed impossible during her early years as Duchess of Cornwall. The tour of Australia and Samoa with Charles in October 2024 was ambitious, given his ongoing recovery, but it demonstrated the monarchy's commitment to the Commonwealth realms. For Camilla, these visits were an opportunity to see her role as queen in a global context, meeting with leaders, visiting local organizations, and representing British interests abroad. However, the tour also highlighted the physical demands of royal duty. The grueling schedule, combined with the emotional stress of Charles's health concerns, took its toll on Camilla's own well-being. The chest infection that forced her to cancel engagements in November was initially dismissed as a minor inconvenience, but when it was later revealed to be pneumonia, it served as a stark reminder that even queens are human. The cancelled Vatican visit became a source of particular disappointment. The meeting with Pope Francis had been planned as a significant diplomatic moment, representing the strengthening relationship between the British monarchy and the Catholic Church. When illness forced its postponement, many assumed the opportunity had been lost forever. However, the surprise visit on April 9, 2025, their 20th wedding anniversary, became even more meaningful than originally planned. The private meeting at Casa Santa Marta, where Pope Francis was recovering from his own pneumonia, created an unexpectedly intimate moment between two institutions recovering from illness and adaptation. The fact that this meeting occurred just 12 days before the Pope's death transformed what could have been a routine diplomatic encounter into a profound moment of shared humanity and mutual support during difficult times. The expansion of Camilla's charitable portfolio in May 2024 represented one of the most significant developments in her royal role. The decision to take on 15 new patronages was not simply about filling gaps in the royal calendar. It was about strategically positioning the monarchy to address contemporary social issues. The Army Benevolent Fund connected her to military families dealing with trauma and financial hardship. The Royal Academy of Dance linked her to Britain's cultural heritage while supporting young performers. The Royal Voluntary Service aligned with her commitment to community support and civic engagement. Each new patronage required not just ceremonial appearances, but genuine engagement with complex social issues. The Royal Literary Fund connected to her passion for literacy, while the Royal Foundation of St. Catherine and Queen's Nursing Institute reflected her commitment to social care and community support. The Queen's Nursing Institute, in particular, allowed her to champion the crucial role of community nurses in British healthcare, especially important during ongoing challenges in the National Health Service. Her work with the Queen's Reading Room evolved from a personal passion project into a significant social initiative. What began as an online book club had grown into an organization distributing 3,000 books annually to people in need. The initiative reflected Camilla's belief that literacy was not just about education, but about human connection and empowerment. Her regular appearances at literary events, from BBC's 500 Words competitions to meetings with authors and publishers, demonstrated a queen who was genuinely passionate about her causes rather than simply fulfilling ceremonial obligations. The modernization of royal household protocols under Camilla's influence continued to gain momentum. Her decision to replace traditional ladies-in-waiting with queen's companions reflected a broader philosophy about making the monarchy more accessible and relevant to contemporary life. The 6 women chosen for these roles were not selected based on aristocratic heritage, but on their friendship and ability to provide genuine support and companionship during royal engagements. This change had cascading effects throughout the royal household. The elimination of the mistress of the robes position, which had existed for centuries to manage the complex hierarchy of female courtiers, represented more than administrative efficiency. It symbolized a queen who was comfortable making decisions based on practical needs rather than historical precedent, even when those decisions quietly ended traditions that dated back generations. The absence of an official statement from the palace regarding these changes reflected Camilla's preference for action over announcement. Rather than drawing attention to the modernization process, she simply implemented changes that made sense for contemporary royal life. This approach allowed traditions to evolve naturally rather than creating controversy through dramatic reforms. The personal cost of these expanded duties became increasingly apparent as 2024 progressed. The balance between supporting a husband recovering from cancer and fulfilling an expanded royal role required careful management of both energy and emotional resources. Camilla's own health challenges, including the pneumonia that forced her to cancel engagements, highlighted the physical demands of modern royal duty. Yet these challenges also revealed the strength of her commitment. Her declaration during a 2024 documentary about domestic violence, "We have made a huge amount of progress, and I shall keep on trying until I am able to know more," reflected not just dedication to a particular cause, but a philosophy about royal service that prioritized substance over ceremony. The expansion of the wash bag project during this period demonstrated how personal experience could be transformed into systematic social support. The project, which provides essential toiletries to survivors of sexual assault receiving forensic examinations at sexual assault referral centers, grew from Camilla's recognition of the small, but crucial needs that could make a traumatic experience slightly more bearable. Working with Safe Lives, the domestic violence charity she had supported since 2016, Camilla used her platform as queen to host supporters and survivors at Buckingham Palace, providing high-profile visibility for issues that often remained hidden. The I Am Portraits of Survivors photography exhibition, which she supported, gave voice to those affected by domestic violence in ways that transcended traditional royal patronage. The Women of the World Festival, which Camilla had supported since 2015, became a platform for addressing global gender inequality. Her involvement went beyond ceremonial attendance to include substantive engagement with policy discussions and survivor advocacy. The festival's focus on celebrating women's achievements while confronting obstacles like domestic violence aligned perfectly with her evolving role as a queen who was not afraid to address difficult social issues. As 2024 drew to a close, the pattern of Camilla's royal duties had fundamentally changed from her early years as Duchess of Cornwall. Where once she had carefully stayed in the background, supporting Charles while avoiding controversy, she now found herself at the forefront of royal engagement with contemporary social issues. The transformation was not just about expanded responsibilities, but about a fundamental shift in how the monarchy engaged with British society. The announcement of the historic state visit to the Vatican for 2025 represented the culmination of this evolution. The visit, tied to the celebration of the 2025 Jubilee year in Rome with its theme of Pilgrims of Hope, positioned Camilla and Charles as leaders in interfaith dialogue and international diplomacy. For a woman who had once been excluded from major royal events due to public disapproval, the prospect of representing Britain in one of the world's most significant religious celebrations represented a remarkable journey of acceptance and authority. The royal duties revolution was not just about Camilla taking on more responsibilities. It was about fundamentally reimagining what it meant to be queen in the 21st century. Her approach emphasized substance over spectacle, practical support over ceremonial appearance, and genuine engagement over traditional protocol. As she prepared for the challenges and opportunities of 2025, it was clear that her role would continue to evolve, shaped by both the needs of the monarchy and her own commitment to making a meaningful difference in the lives of ordinary people. In the private study at Clarence House, where family photographs shared space with official documents and charitable reports, Queen Camilla found herself contemplating questions that would have seemed unthinkable during her controversial early years. With the royal family, the conversation about succession, what would happen when Prince William eventually became king, was no longer a distant theoretical discussion, but a practical consideration that required careful thought and planning. The reality of King Charles III's cancer diagnosis in 2024 had brought these discussions into sharp focus. While the king's treatment had been successful and he had returned to royal duties, the experience had served as a stark reminder of mortality and the importance of succession planning. At 77 years old, Charles was already the oldest person to assume the British throne, and the questions about the future had become increasingly relevant for all members of the royal family, including Camilla herself. Royal historians and constitutional experts had begun discussing what would happen to Camilla when William became king with increasing frequency. The precedent was clear. She would transition from queen consort to queen dowager, the formal term for the widow of a king. However, The practical implications of this change were far more complex than a simple title adjustment, involving questions of residence, royal duties, financial support, and her ongoing role within the monarchy. The relationship between Camilla and Prince William had evolved significantly over the years, shaped by shared experiences of supporting family members through cancer treatments and working together during the king's periods of recovery. Their joint appearances at royal events in March 2024 had displayed evidence of a comfortable connection, suggesting that the transition, when it came, might be smoother than some had predicted. However, the dynamics were complicated by the broader changes within the royal family. The departure of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from their roles as working royals had significantly reduced the number of senior family members available for official duties. As royal historian Gareth Russell had noted, there was a risk of a seriously underweight monarchy when potentially only King William and Queen Catherine would be handling the full range of royal responsibilities until their children came of age. This reality suggested that Camilla's role, even after Charles's eventual death, might remain significant. Unlike previous queen dowagers who had often retreated from public life, the practical needs of the modern monarchy might require her continued engagement with royal duties. Her experience, established patronages, and proven ability to handle complex social issues would represent valuable continuity during a period of transition. The question of residence added another layer of complexity to succession planning. Charles and Camilla had lived at Clarence House since before their marriage, and there had been discussions about whether they would move to Buckingham Palace after its ongoing renovation was completed in 2027. The decision about where they lived as king and queen would influence what accommodation would be available for Camilla as queen dowager, with implications for her ability to continue royal duties and maintain her established routines. The modernization of royal protocols under Camilla's influence had created precedents that might affect her future role. Her decision to appoint queen's companions rather than traditional ladies-in-waiting, and her elimination of the mistress of the robes position, demonstrated a willingness to adapt royal traditions to contemporary needs. This flexibility might extend to creating new models for how a queen dowager could function within the 21st century monarchy. Financial considerations also played a role in succession planning. The sovereign grant and other royal funding mechanisms would need to accommodate Camilla's continued activities, whether ceremonial or charitable. Her extensive patronage
Today, we stand united in our resolve to move forward with strength and
represented
dignity.
significant ongoing commitments that would require continued support and engagement. The international dimension of these considerations was particularly significant. Camilla's growing role in diplomatic relations, exemplified by the planned Vatican visit for the 2025 Jubilee year, had established her as a respected figure in international circles. Her relationships with Commonwealth leaders, developed during tours like the 2024 visit to Australia and Samoa, represented valuable diplomatic assets that could continue to serve British interests regardless of her formal title. The Commonwealth realms added another layer of complexity to succession planning. In these countries, where Charles served as king and Camilla as queen, the transition would involve not just British constitutional considerations, but also the laws and traditions of multiple sovereign nations. Each realm might have different approaches to recognizing and supporting a queen dowager, requiring careful coordination and planning. Speculation about the timing of succession had intensified following Charles's cancer diagnosis. Some sources had suggested that his health challenges might influence his thinking about the length of his reign, though royal authorities generally dismissed the possibility of abdication. As royal expert Charles Ray had noted, stepping aside was just not in his psyche, and he was unlikely to give it all up and sit in some retirement home somewhere. However, the precedent of Queen Elizabeth II's later years, when she gradually transferred more responsibilities to Charles and other senior royals, suggested that a managed transition might be possible even without formal abdication. This could provide an opportunity for William to take on greater responsibilities while Camilla maintained her established role, creating a period of gradual adjustment rather than sudden change. The question of public opinion added another dimension to succession planning. While Camilla had achieved remarkable acceptance as queen consort, her role as queen dowager during William's reign would be unprecedented in modern times. The British public's response to seeing her continue in a prominent royal role after Charles's death would depend largely on how successfully she had established herself during her time as queen. Her advocacy work, particularly on issues like domestic violence and literacy, had created a strong foundation of public support based on substance rather than sentiment. The fact that she had been named one of the most influential women by The Independent for 3 consecutive years, 2023, 2024, and 2025, suggested that her public standing was based on genuine achievement rather than merely her royal status. The personal dimension of these considerations was perhaps most significant for Camilla herself. Her declaration about her domestic violence advocacy, "I shall keep on trying until I am able to know more," reflected a commitment that transcended her formal royal role. Whether as Queen Consort or Queen Dowager, her dedication to these causes would likely continue, providing continuity in her public work regardless of constitutional changes. The relationship with Catherine, Princess of Wales, would also be crucial during any transition period. As the future Queen Consort, Catherine would presumably take on many of the ceremonial and charitable roles currently held by Camilla. The smooth transfer of these responsibilities would require careful coordination and mutual respect between the two women, both of whom had experience of marrying into the royal family as outsiders. The precedent of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother's long widowhood, provided one model for how a Queen Dowager might function in the modern era. However, the circumstances were quite different. The Queen Mother had been queen during wartime and had a unique place in British affections. Camilla's path to acceptance had been more difficult, but her role had also been more substantive in terms of engagement with contemporary social issues. As 2024 progressed into 2025, the succession question remained largely unspoken in official circles, but the practical preparations were evident in the gradual expansion of Camilla's independent role and the strengthening of her relationships with other senior royals. The challenge would be maintaining the momentum of modernization and social engagement that had characterized her time as Queen Consort while adapting to whatever role she might play in the future. The irony was not lost on royal observers that a woman who had once been seen as a threat to the monarchy's stability was now being viewed as a crucial element in its future continuity. Her transformation from controversial figure to respected queen had been so complete that questions about succession now focused not on whether she would have a role, but on what form that role would take. The upcoming state visit to the Vatican, the continued expansion of her charitable work, and her growing confidence in representing Britain internationally all suggested a queen who was not preparing to step back from public life, but rather to continue evolving her role to meet the changing needs of the monarchy and the nation. Whatever the future held, it was clear that Camilla's influence on the royal family would extend well beyond her time as Queen Consort, shaping the institution's approach to public service and social engagement for years to come. The helicopter descended over the manicured gardens of Sandringham Estate as Queen Camilla prepared for what had become an annual highlight of the royal calendar, the Sandringham Flower Show. It was July 2025, and the sun cast long shadows across the Norfolk countryside where she and King Charles had found some of their most peaceful moments together. The show, now in its 142nd year, represented more than just a local celebration of horticulture. It had become a symbol of the monarchy's deep connection to British rural life and tradition. As she walked through the displays of prize-winning vegetables and carefully cultivated flower arrangements, Camilla reflected on how different this year felt from the previous one. In 2024, Charles's cancer treatment had forced him to withdraw from the event, marking the first time in its long history that no royal member had attended. The absence had been keenly felt by the approximately 20,000 visitors who gathered annually to support local charities through the show's proceeds. Now, with Charles recovered and by her side, the 2025 show felt like a celebration of more than just agricultural excellence. It was a testament to resilience, recovery, and the enduring power of community traditions. The announcement that next year's show would pause to make way for the Royal Horticultural Society event added poignancy to the occasion, making it a moment of transition that seemed to mirror the broader changes occurring within the royal family. The international stage had beckoned to Camilla with increasing frequency throughout 2024 and 2025, transforming her from a primarily domestic royal figure into a genuine global ambassador for British values and interests. The planned state visit to the Vatican for the 2025 Jubilee year represented the pinnacle of this evolution, positioning her alongside Charles as a leader in international diplomacy and interfaith dialogue. The significance of the Vatican visit extended far beyond ceremonial protocol. The 2025 Jubilee year, with its theme of Pilgrims of Hope, occurred only once every 25 years, making their participation in this rare and sacred event a profound statement about the monarchy's role in promoting global unity and religious understanding. For a queen whose early years in royal life had been marked by controversy and division, the opportunity to represent Britain in such a significant spiritual celebration represented an extraordinary transformation. The preparation for the Vatican visit had required extensive diplomatic coordination between the Foreign Office, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and Vatican officials. Camilla's growing reputation as a thoughtful and respectful representative of British interests had been crucial in securing the invitation and ensuring that the visit would be meaningful rather than merely ceremonial. The surprise meeting with Pope Francis at Casa Santa Marta on April 9, 2025, their 20th wedding anniversary, had provided an unexpected preview of the diplomatic potential of their relationship. The private encounter, which occurred while both the king and the Pope were recovering from pneumonia, had created an atmosphere of shared vulnerability and mutual respect that transcended formal protocol. The fact that this meeting occurred just 12 days before Pope Francis's death had transformed what might have been a routine diplomatic encounter into a profound moment of historical significance. Camilla's gentle presence during this difficult time for the Catholic Church had been noted by Vatican observers and had strengthened the relationship between the British monarchy and the Holy See at a crucial moment. The international tours of 2024 and 2025 had showcased Camilla's growing confidence and competence as a diplomatic representative. The October 2024 tour of Australia and Samoa with Charles had been particularly significant, given his ongoing recovery from cancer treatment. The decision to proceed with this ambitious Commonwealth tour demonstrated both their commitment to the realm nations and Camilla's ability to provide crucial support during challenging circumstances. In Australia, Camilla had engaged with local organizations focused on domestic violence prevention and support, connecting her personal advocacy work with international diplomatic objectives. Her visits to women's shelters and meetings with survivor advocates had demonstrated how her charitable interests could serve broader diplomatic purposes, showing Australia and other Commonwealth nations that the British monarchy remained relevant to contemporary social challenges. The Samoa portion of the tour had highlighted the monarchy's evolving relationship with Pacific Island nations. Camilla's participation in traditional ceremonies and her engagement with local cultural organizations had shown a queen who was comfortable adapting to different cultural contexts while maintaining her authentic commitment to the causes she championed. However, the international demands had also highlighted the physical and emotional challenges of modern royal duty. The chest infection that had forced Camilla to cancel engagements in November 2024, later revealed to be pneumonia, served as a reminder that even global ambassadors were subject to human limitations. The illness had forced difficult decisions about which commitments to maintain and which to postpone, requiring careful balance between international obligations and personal well-being. The expansion of her charitable portfolio in May 2024 to include 15 new patronages had created international as well as domestic implications. Organizations like the Army Benevolent Fund connected her to military families throughout the Commonwealth, while the Royal Academy of Dance linked her to Britain's cultural exports and soft power influence. The Royal Voluntary Service and Queen's Nursing Institute provided models for community service that could be shared with other nations facing similar social challenges. Her work with the Queen's Reading Room had evolved into an international platform for promoting literacy and literature. The distribution of 3,000 books annually to people in need had inspired similar initiatives in other Commonwealth countries, demonstrating how royal charitable work could have ripple effects across multiple nations. The creation of the Untold Literaire Prize, recognizing young adult fiction and allowing UK and French citizens to share joint literary experiences, showed how her personal interests could strengthen diplomatic relationships. The modernization of royal protocols under her influence had international implications as well. Her decision to replace traditional ladies-in-waiting with queen's companions had been noted by other royal families and constitutional monarchies, suggesting new models for how royal households could adapt to contemporary expectations while maintaining their essential functions. The elimination of the mistress of the robes position, which had quietly ended centuries of tradition without official announcement, demonstrated her preference for practical evolution over dramatic reform. This approach had been particularly appreciated by Commonwealth countries seeking to modernize their own relationships with the monarchy while respecting historical connections. Her advocacy for survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence had taken on international dimensions through her work with global organizations and her engagement with survivors from different countries during royal tours. The I Am Portraits of Survivors photography exhibition, which she had supported, included voices from multiple nations, showing how royal patronage could create platforms for international dialogue about difficult social issues. The Women of the World Festival, which Camilla had supported since 2015, had evolved into an international platform for addressing gender inequality and celebrating women's achievements across different cultures and countries. Her participation in panel discussions and policy forums had positioned her as a global advocate for women's rights rather than simply a ceremonial figurehead. The relationship with Commonwealth leaders had deepened through these various initiatives. Her meetings with prime ministers, governors general, and other officials during international tours had demonstrated her growing understanding of the complex political and social challenges facing the modern Commonwealth. These relationships would be crucial as questions about the monarchy's future role in these countries continued to evolve. The diplomatic potential of her animal welfare advocacy had also become apparent through international engagements. Her patronage of organizations like Battersea Dogs and Cats Home and Brooke had connected her to global animal welfare networks, providing additional avenues for international cooperation and cultural exchange. The adoption of rescue dogs and her visible commitment to animal welfare had resonated with audiences worldwide, showing a more personal and relatable side of royal diplomacy. As 2025 progressed, the pattern of international engagement had become a defining characteristic of Camilla's role as queen. The careful balance between representing British interests abroad and maintaining authentic commitment to her charitable causes had created a model of royal diplomacy that was both effective and genuine. The upcoming Vatican visit promised to be the culmination of this international evolution. The participation in the 2025 Jubilee year would position Camilla and Charles as global leaders in interfaith dialogue and international cooperation, demonstrating the monarchy's continued relevance in addressing contemporary global challenges. The transformation from a woman once excluded from major royal events due to public controversy to a respected global ambassador represented one of the most remarkable personal and institutional changes in modern royal history. As she prepared for continued international engagement, it was clear that Camilla had not merely adapted to her royal role, but had fundamentally redefined what it meant to serve as queen in an interconnected and rapidly changing world. The golden afternoon light filtered through the tall windows of Buckingham Palace as Queen Camilla reviewed the guest list for an upcoming reception supporting Safe Lives, the domestic violence charity she had championed for nearly a decade. Among the names were survivors, advocates, policymakers, and members of the public who had contributed to the fight against domestic abuse, a gathering that represented the culmination of years of careful, determined work to bring one of society's most challenging issues into the spotlight. As she prepared for what would be another in a series of high-profile events supporting her causes, Camilla reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought her to this moment. The woman who had once been vilified in the British press had become a powerful voice for the voiceless, using her platform as queen to address issues that many preferred to ignore. Her declaration from the 2024 documentary about domestic violence echoed in her mind. "We have made a huge amount of progress, and I shall keep on trying until I am able to know more." The Wash Bag Project, which she had initiated in 2013 as the Duchess of Cornwall, had grown from a simple idea into a nationwide program that provided essential toiletries to survivors of sexual assault receiving forensic examinations at sexual assault referral centers across the United Kingdom. What had started as a recognition of the small but crucial needs that could make a traumatic experience slightly more bearable had evolved into a systematic approach to supporting survivors at their most vulnerable moments. The expansion of the project throughout 2024 and 2025 had been driven by Camilla's understanding that dignity and respect were as important as any other form of support provided to survivors. Each wash bag contained basic items: shampoo, soap, toothbrush, clean underwear, but represented something much more significant, a message that survivors mattered, that their comfort and well-being were important, and that they were not alone in their darkest moments. Her work with Safe Lives had evolved similarly, from ceremonial patronage to substantive advocacy. Since becoming involved with the organization in 2016, Camilla had used every opportunity to raise awareness about domestic abuse, challenging the silence and shame that often surrounded these crimes. The hosting of supporters and survivors at Buckingham Palace had provided a prestigious platform for sharing stories and discussing solutions, transforming the royal residence into a forum for social change. The I Am Portraits of Survivors photography exhibition, which she had supported, had given voice to those affected by domestic violence in ways that transcended traditional royal charitable work. By lending her name and presence to such initiatives, Camilla had helped create space for conversations that might otherwise never happen, using her position to amplify voices that needed to be heard. The personal connection to these causes remained evident in every aspect of her advocacy work. Her mother's death from osteoporosis in 1994, followed by her grandmother's death from the same disease, had led to her long-standing commitment to the National Osteoporosis Society. Her work as president since 2001 had combined personal understanding with royal platform to raise awareness about a disease that disproportionately affected women, particularly older women who might otherwise lack powerful advocates. The Women of the World Festival, which she had supported since becoming its president in 2015, had provided a broader platform for addressing gender equality and celebrating women's achievements worldwide. Her involvement had gone beyond ceremonial attendance to include substantive engagement with policy discussions and international advocacy, positioning her as a global voice for women's rights and empowerment. The evolution of the Queen's Reading Room, from personal passion project to significant social initiative, demonstrated how Camilla's interests could be transformed into systematic support for others. What had begun as an online book club had grown into an organization that distributed 3,000 books annually to people in need, reflecting her belief that literacy was not just about education, but about human connection and hope. The creation of the Untold Literaire Prize, recognizing young adult fiction and fostering UK French literary connections, showed how her interests could strengthen international relationships while supporting emerging writers. The addition of 20 new manuscripts to Queen Mary's Doll's House as part of the modern-day miniature library project demonstrated her commitment to reflecting contemporary British literature in royal collections. Her animal welfare advocacy had maintained the same personal authenticity that characterized all her charitable work. The adoption of rescue puppies Beth and Bluebell from Battersea Dogs and Cats Home in 2011 and 2012, followed by Molly in 2025, had provided visible evidence of her commitment to animal welfare causes. Her patronage of organizations like Battersea and her presidency of Brooke had connected her to global animal welfare networks while maintaining focus on practical, on-the-ground support for animals in need. The expansion of her patronage portfolio in May 2024 to include 15 new organizations had been strategic rather than ceremonial. Each new patronage reflected careful consideration of how her involvement could add genuine value to important causes. The Army Benevolent Fund connected her to military families dealing with trauma and financial hardship. The Royal Academy of Dance linked her to Britain's cultural heritage while supporting young performers. The Royal Voluntary Service aligned with her commitment to community support and civic engagement. The Royal Literary Fund and Royal Foundation of St. Catherine reflected her interests in education and social care, while the Queen's Nursing Institute allowed her to champion the crucial role of community nurses in British healthcare. Each patronage represented not just a commitment to attend events, but an ongoing relationship with organizations addressing real social needs. The modernization of royal protocols under her influence had been equally purposeful. The decision to replace traditional ladies-in-waiting with Queen's companions reflected a philosophy about making the monarchy more accessible and relevant to contemporary life. The elimination of the mistress of the robes position, which had existed for centuries, demonstrated a willingness to end traditions that no longer served practical purposes. These changes had been implemented without fanfare or official announcements, reflecting Camilla's preference for substance over spectacle. Rather than drawing attention to the modernization process, she had simply made changes that made sense for contemporary royal life, allowing traditions to evolve naturally rather than creating controversy through dramatic reforms. The international recognition of her work had been gratifying, but not the primary motivation for her advocacy. Being named to the Independent's Influence list for 3 consecutive years, 2023, 2024, and 2025, reflected genuine achievement rather than mere royal status. But, for Camilla, the real measure of success was the lives changed and the progress made in addressing the issues she championed. The upcoming state visit to the Vatican for the 2025 Jubilee year represented the international dimension of her legacy-building work. The participation in this rare and significant religious celebration, with its theme of Pilgrims of Hope, positioned her alongside Charles as a leader in interfaith dialogue and global cooperation. For a queen whose advocacy work often focused on those who had lost hope, the symbolism was particularly meaningful. The relationship with future generations had become an increasingly important consideration as Camilla thought about legacy. Her work with young people through organizations like the Anne Frank Trust UK, which she became the first royal patron of in January 2024, reflected her understanding that lasting change required engaging with those who would carry these causes forward. Her involvement in the BBC's 500 Words competition and other literacy initiatives for young people demonstrated how royal patronage could inspire the next generation while supporting immediate needs. The distribution of books to children and young people through the Queen's Reading Room represented an investment in future leaders and advocates who might continue the work she had begun. The health challenges of 2024, including her bout with pneumonia that forced the cancellation of several engagements, had served as a reminder of the importance of building sustainable systems rather than relying solely on personal involvement. The organizations she supported had been encouraged to develop their own capacity and leadership, ensuring that the work would continue regardless of her ability to participate directly. As 2025 progressed, the pattern of Camilla's legacy-building work had become clear. Rather than focusing on grand gestures or high-profile announcements, she had built a network of relationships and commitments that addressed real social needs while respecting the dignity and autonomy of those she sought to help. Her approach emphasized practical support over symbolic action, long-term commitment over short-term publicity, and authentic engagement over ceremonial appearance. The transformation from controversial figure to respected advocate had been complete, but, for Camilla, the work was far from finished. Her declaration about domestic violence advocacy, "I shall keep on trying until I am able to know more," reflected a commitment that transcended her formal royal role and suggested a legacy that would continue to influence how the monarchy engaged with social issues long after her own time in the spotlight had ended. The future of the monarchy would undoubtedly be shaped by the precedents she had established and the causes she had championed. Whether as queen consort, queen dowager, or simply as a private citizen, her commitment to the vulnerable and marginalized had created a template for royal service that future generations would build upon, ensuring that her legacy would be measured not in ceremonies attended or titles held, but in lives changed and hope restored.